Welcome back to Relational Healing with Catherine Newton. Today we're going to be talking about all the options between all or nothing. Okay. As we probably know by now, childhood trauma survivors struggle with black and white thinking. The situation's all good or the situation's all bad. You're all good or you're all bad, or I'm all good or I'm all bad. And the reason that happens is that child parts that live within our psyches do not have the capacity to think like an adult. They don't have the capacity to think or reason like adults reason. And so that's how come trauma survivors get stuck in the all or nothing, is because that child part gets activated whenever there's a trigger. And that's the part of the brain that you start thinking out of. It's a very primitive part, and it's all or nothing. I'm all good or all bad. If I make a mistake, I'm all bad, and I get hit with tons of toxic shame. If you make a mistake, you're all bad, and you're cut off, and I don't want anything to do with you, and you have fallen off the pedestal, and hell with you. And so that's where trauma survivors get stuck, and you can see how that would be a real problem in trying to maintain healthy relationships. So what we want to talk about today is there are lots of options between all or nothing, between black and white. And one of the areas I see this show up in is in the area of marriage and relationships. So a lot of times when couples get into trouble because they haven't worked on their own stuff and they can't stay big in their relationships, is that it will be, well, I have to stay and put up with it, or I have to leave and divorce. And so there we have it. We have the all or nothing. Things are really bad. I'm being treated lousy. I'm not being treated the way I want to be treated. And so I have to stay and put up with it, or I have to completely cut that person off and divorce them. And I always remind people there are lots of options between all or nothing, but it requires you to stay big. And so if you're in a situation in a relationship where things are going on that you don't like, or things, your needs aren't being met, or you're feeling abused in some way, it's actually your responsibility. I love that word, not fault. It's your responsibility. You have the ability to respond. It's your responsibility to say to the person, listen, give them a little grace and truth. I call it the grace and truth approach. It sounds like you're really upset right now. That's the grace. But it's not okay to talk to me that way. That's the truth. And if you continue, this is what I'll be doing. Just for the next hour, just for the next day, just for the next week. And so you can use that as a template. I call it the grace and truth approach. Okay? Give them a little grace. It sounds like you're having a rough day, but it is not okay to fill in the blank. And if you continue, this is what I'll be doing. Fill in the blank, and then tack on just for now. For instance, you might say, gosh, you sound like you're really upset on the phone, but it's not okay to scream at me, so I'm going to be hanging up just for now. And that helps the other person not go off the rails and not feel like they're being cut off indefinitely, which causes more triggering for the other person. So practice that, write that down, put it on a little 3x5 card, because at first it's going to be difficult for you, especially if you can't manage the activation. So you really want to work on managing your flashbacks, healing some of those flashbacks, and then you're going to be able to put this grace and truth thing into practice so that you're not always stuck in the all or nothing and reacting out of that black and white thinking. You want to be able to think like an adult. And so if your marriage is breaking up or your marriage is on the rocks, you want to be able to say, listen, honey, whatever's going on is not working for us. Maybe we need to take a break for a couple weeks. Maybe we need to go see a marriage therapist. Maybe we need to take a break for longer. If you've been trying different things, maybe you need to take a break for longer and have a separation, but with the intention of getting back together, with the intention of staying true and honoring your vows, and then coming back together on a weekly basis to talk about what you learned in therapy and making it very clear that that's what you're going to do. Those are different options, so We don't have to go to, I got to stay and put up with it, or I got to cut the person off and divorce. And again, that's just one example of where this all or nothing thinking can show up. So be on the lookout for that, the activity of the child part. Be on the lookout for the language that goes along with all or nothing, so that you can stop that behavior and pull that part back and hold that part while you deal with your activation. And I think I've put other videos out that talk about providing grief support to the part. Really go back and listen to those. Also speaking for the part rather than from the part. These are all ways of beginning to reparent that child part so that it can heal. That's the end goal, folks. We want to be able to get those broken parts reintegrated into a whole so that things just flow a little bit more smoothly in our life. So I hope this was helpful. Certainly comments are welcome, and certainly like and subscribe if this is information that you think might be helpful in your life and in your healing process. Thanks. We'll see you again soon.